Okay, in this video, we're going to work on the review for 8.1, 8.2, 8.3. And in class, I asked you to, let me just turn this on, to write this on top of your paper so that whenever you're asked to do a problem that involves the sum of the interior angles, you have the equation to use. Okay, so first problem, find the sum of the interior angles of each regular polygon. Okay, so we've got to do a couple of things here. We've got to be careful. First off, you want to know that it's a regular polygon. Okay, so that doesn't really impact my answer, but you should know that regular means that all the angles and all the sides are equal. Okay, if you just want the sum of the interior angles, you're going to use that equation. So the sum, what we're looking for, is going to equal n minus 2 times 180. If this is a 17-agon, and I should have an a there, then I'm going to put 17 for my n. So this is going to be 17 minus 2 times 180. That's 15 times 180. And when you put that in your calculator, you should be getting 2700 degrees for your answer. Okay? All right, moving on to the second problem. They're asking you for the sum of the interior angles of a decagon. So I told you in class that decagon have 10 sides. So using that same equation on top again, the sum equals, and I will give you this equation on your test just like I did last time. N minus 2 times 180. So force yourself to write the equation. Underneath the initial equation, you're going to plug in your 10 for your n. Because remember, 10 is the number of sides. So that's going to equal, the sum will equal 8 times 180 degrees. And when you plug that in your calculator, you should get 1200. So that is the sum. Okay, make sure that you can do that. Okay, the sum of the interior angles of a polygon. Polygon just means multi-sided figure. Okay, so these are all polygons, and they're all convex polygons. So the sum is given. Find the number of sides. So this is your sum. So what do we know? We know that the sum equals n minus 2 times 180. Okay, in this case, they gave us the sum. Under the word sum, you're going to write 900. And I would strongly suggest you do it exactly this way. When you're in a math class or a physics class or a chemistry class or a biology class and they give you a formula, this is how you want to use the formula. Okay, divide both sides by 180. 180. And when I divide 900 by 180, what do I get? So grab your calculator, because you're going to need a calculator for this assessment. And 900 divided by 180 gives me 5. Okay? So 5 equals n minus 2. I'm looking for n. Excuse me, not n minus 2. So to get n by itself, you're going to add 2, and you're going to add 2. So n will be 7. It will not be 5, and it will not be 3, which are common mistakes that I saw on the last quiz. Okay, you've got to follow through and use your equation. Do not pull the trigger and say you're done once you divide by 180. You are not done. That does not give you n. That gives you n minus 1, and your goal is to get n. Okay, same idea here. Write down your formula. The sum equals n minus 2 times 180. The sum you're given is 2520. That equals n minus 2 times 180. Divide both sides by 180 because your goal is to isolate the n. Okay, so 2520 in your calculator, 2520, divided by 180, and we are getting a value of 14. 14 does not equal n. It equals n minus 2. To get n, you've got to undo the subtraction of 2 by adding it to both sides, and we are getting n equals 16 for our answer. Okay, so it's not 14 and it's not 12, which again were common errors on the last assessment. Okay, so don't make those mistakes again. This is your second bite of the apple. Okay, now here you have a polygon. Okay, 5 and 6 are showing you interior angles. So these are interior angles. Okay, for 5 and 6. 7 are showing you exterior angles. And whenever we have exterior angles, I tend to draw big circles around them, right? Because the circle's telling me that what's my sum? 360. Okay, I'm going to get rid of those circles, but we'll get back to that in a second. Okay, I see that I have angles identified. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 angles. So there are 6 angles, there are 6 sides. So 6 equals my n. I told you to put a little square like this and tell me how many degrees should be inside there. That's what I want to know. So you have to do that first. What equation we're going to use? We're going to use n minus 2 times 180 equals the sum of the interior. Okay, you have got to start there. Don't start adding things up. You have to figure out what your sum should be, and then we'll work from there to figure out what you have so far, and then you'll be able to calculate what your x is. Okay, your n is 6. So this is 6 minus 2 times 180. That's going to be 4 times 180. So that's going to equal my sum. What will my sum be? 4 times 180 is 720. So the sum is going to be 720. So put 720 right here so you can see it. Okay, so now get your equation. 720 is going to equal, start adding up the angles. 88 plus 105 plus 142 plus 140 plus 124 plus x. What is that? Well, let's add them all up. When I add them up in my calculator, I'm getting 599. So the numbers add up to 599, plus we have an x. 720 equals 599 plus x. So our next step is to subtract 599 from each side. And when I do that, I get x equals 121. Then I'm done. Okay, so that's our answer. So first step, find out how many degrees should be inside. Then do your equation. Then find your x. Okay, so be very systematic. So same idea for the next one. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 angles, so therefore I have 5 sides. So my n equals 5. So to get my sum, I'm going to say the sum of the interior is 5 minus 2, that was n minus 2, times 180. That is 3 times 180. So in your calculator, so again, you're going to need a calculator for this. Don't come without a calculator. Don't come without a pencil. You will need both. Okay? The sum, remember this little e means sum, is 540. I'm going to put a little box here, just like I did in the other one. And in that little box, I'm going to put 540 degrees. That's what this should add up to. Now add up all your numbers. So I'm going to say 540 is going to equal 64 plus, I'm going to skip the x's for right now. Those are all my numbers. Now add 3x and 2x, and that gives me 5x. Okay, at this point, add up your numbers. Okay, I got 260. So this is 260 plus 5x. That's going to equal 540, and I apologize for running into this other work, but at least I have a different color, so hopefully you can see that. Okay, so if I subtract 260 from each side, so I'm taking 540 minus 260, so that, and I have 260 minus 260 plus 5x. This is now gone. 540 minus 260. What is that? Grab the old calculator. 540 minus 260, and I am getting 280. Okay, so this is 280 equals 5x. The goal is to get x by itself. Divide by 5, divide by 5, and x equals 56. Okay, so that's the measure of that missing x value. Okay, so now I'm going to draw this little line here. And now we're going to talk about the exterior. I'm just going to draw a circle around it. And I'm going to write 360 next to it, because the sum of the exterior angles is 360. Do not do the formula n minus 2. That's not appropriate. That is only set for the interior. And I'm not putting 360 inside because I'm not dealing with interior angles. Okay, so our goal again is to find the x. So 360, which is the sum of the exterior, equals, add your numbers together, count up your x's, that's 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, add those together, you are going to get 150. Right, so 6 and 9 is 15, and then plus 7x, 360 is still here, minus 150, minus 150, oops, 50, not 52, 0 from 0 is 0, 6 minus 5 is 1, 3 minus 1 is 2, that equals 7x, divide by 7, divide by 7, and I'm getting x equals 30 or 30. Okay, make sure you can get that. Make sure you see the difference between 5 and 6 and 7. 7's exterior, 5 and 6 are interior. Okay, continuing with the review. We are still in 8.1. This is all 8.1. And I have not even looked down here at my answers, but they are matching up. So make sure that you're looking at them as you go. Do not just copy down my work. All that will prove is that you are a good copier. It will not indicate that you have an understanding. You've got to be able to do this on your own, and then check your answer with my work, and then erase any mistake you make and redo it and recheck. Do not just listen and copy. Bad idea. Poor use of the resource. Okay, find the number of sides for each regular polygon. Okay, so regular polygon, same number of angles, same measurement of every angle, and same measurement of every side. That's what regular means. Remember, regular is super special. You have to know what that means. We've gone over this many times, and it was even in another section previously. So regular is a term that you have to understand. Okay, now, I have told you it's infinitely easier to work through exterior angles. So, if they give you the interior is 120, you have to remember that interior plus exterior equals 180. Okay, they are supplementary. So if I know that my interior angle is 120, then 120 plus E equals 180. you should easily be able to say that my exterior is 60. Okay, since the sum of the exterior angles are always 360, and each angle is 60 degrees, you have 6 sides to that shape. That's using exterior angles. If you want to use the interior angle, totally fine. But this would be your setup. You have to know that n minus 2 times 180 divided by the number of sides is going to equal that one interior angle. Okay, put this over 1 and you're going to do cross products. 120n equals, and I'm going to distribute, so 180n minus 360. I'm going to add 360 to each side, and I'm going to subtract 120n from each side. Okay, that's going to give me 60n equals 360. And I need to know what n is. Divide by 60, divide by 60, and n equals 6. Both methods will give you the same answer. This is the easier method, but you certainly are welcome to work with your interior angle and use the harder method. They are both the same. They both result in the same answer, and they both demonstrate an understanding of the underlying problem. Okay, the next problem, they give you the exterior. So you're going to use the exterior. If every exterior angle is 45, and I know I have 360 in the total exterior, divide that by what each angle is, and you're going to get 360 divided by 45, and the number of sides are going to be 8. Okay? So I don't have to do that through the interior because they didn't give it to me, and there's no need to get it and then do the long way. All right? So whenever possible, when dealing with regular shapes, if they want to have you figure out the number of sides and they give you one interior, get your exterior based on interior plus exterior equals 180. You want to know this. And then divide that exterior angle into 360. That will quickly give you the number of sides. Okay? So we've gone over that a couple of times in class. We did it in the other test. We did it in previous reviews. And we did it in the review in the class, or in our last class. Okay, and I'm doing it again here and explaining why I'm doing it and what the easy method and what the harder method is. So knowing that interior plus exterior equals 180 is very helpful to you. And if it helps you to visualize that, look at this. In number 5, I have interior angles. What if I extended a side? This is an interior. This would be the exterior. These are on a straight line, and that's why interior plus exterior is going to equal 180 degrees, okay? So you can always kind of pick an angle and do that exercise so that you feel confident understanding that concept. Okay, let's keep going. All right, so now we're on, this is the 8.2 to 8.3 material, which is all about parallelograms. Okay, remember, you have one definition, and we've gone over that many times. The definition is that a parallelogram has 4 parallel sides. Notice the word in the definition is a root of the word in the shape's name, which is parallelogram. You also have 4 theorems that are in play when you have a parallelogram, and we've gone over this in great detail. Okay, looking at this, my focus is on angles. There are two things I know about angles if I have a parallelogram. I know that opposite angles are congruent, and I know that adjacent angles sum to 180. Okay, I had you isolate those two angles so it wasn't confusing as to what the measure, where the numbers belonged. And I also had you write that these are that these are consecutive angles, also called adjacent angles. Okay, so let me say that they are consecutive. I'll put in paren adjacent, so that now you know, I hope, that they sum to 180 if it's a parallelogram. And they are telling you it is a parallelogram. So what you're going to do is you're going to take all of those angles, 115 from angle U, plus 29 plus 2x from the top of angle V, plus 36, which is the bottom of angle V. And that has to equal 180 because they are supplementary. So go ahead and add up your numbers. So let me just turn the page on my document. So you're going to add up all your numbers. And when you do that, you should be getting 180. And you're going to add 2x to that. And that has to equal 180. Okay, do not panic. Apply your normal procedure. Subtract 180, subtract 180. 2x is going to equal 0. That's fine. Divide by 2, divide by 2. So x equals 0 is your answer for x. Now that does not mean that the angle equals 0. It just means that this x equals 0. Therefore, the top of angle V is just 29. So let's just check. Why don't we add things together now? If I have 115 and I have 29 and I have 36 and I add those all together, I'm going to get 180. It checks. It's all good. Okay, let's go over to the next one. Here I see I have two angles. Once again, these are consecutive, also known as adjacent. And I know consecutive angles sum to 180. I'll use the word adjacent again so that you understand that those are synonyms. They mean the same thing. We're going to add up all the angles. So I have 24x plus 2. That's the x angle, plus 97. That's one side of the y angle, plus 33, which is the other side of the y angle, and that's going to equal 180. Okay, add up your numbers. Okay, your numbers are the ones that do not have an x attached. When I add up my numbers, I get 132, and I have 24x, and that's going to equal 180. I'm going to subtract 132. I'm going to subtract 132. And when I do that, I get, what, 48? And that's going to equal 24x. Divide by 24. Divide by 24. X equals 2. Okay, so can I check my work? Yes, I can. If you want to check, what you're going to do is plug in the 2 for the x. 2 times 24 gives you 48 plus 2 plus 97 plus 33. And if you add them all up, that's 50. That is 83. And 97 makes 180. And that's what I needed. So I know now that my x value of 2 is correct. Okay, keep going. Same type of problem. I have adjacent angles again, so these are consecutive. And I'll say consecutive angles, sum to 180. And writing these things down for yourself is helpful because your brain is seeing that phrase again and again, and it'll help it to understand it and to have it be part of your memory. Okay, add up your angles. The left part of angle F is 31. The right part of angle F is 6x plus 4. And angle E is 115. And that's going to equal 180. Okay, add up all your numbers. When I do that for 12, I get 150. Plus I have my 6x. That equals 180. Subtract 150 from each side. That's going to give you 30. Divide by 6, divide by 6. X is going to equal 5. So we can, excuse me, do our check. We're going to do our check. 31 plus, okay, 6 times 5. I'm going to replace that X. 6 times 5 is 30, so I'm adding 30. Plus 4 plus 115. Add these up. So that's 61, 65 plus 115 is indeed 180. So I know that my X value of 5 is good. Okay. These three questions, 10, 11, 12, all dealt with the theorem that consecutive angles in a parallelogram will sum to 180. Okay, so that's one part of a theorem. The other part of that same type of theorem is that opposite angles are congruent. We haven't had an algebraic problem that goes over that, but that's the other piece of that theorem. Okay, this next question, 13, deal with the fact that diagonals in a parallelogram, remember they told us these are all parallelogram. Diagonals in a parallelogram bisect each other. Now, when we were doing this in class and I asked you about this, people were constantly telling me that the diagonals in a parallelogram are equal. That is absolutely not a true statement. What I know about diagonals in a parallelogram is that this little piece will equal this little piece, and this little piece will equal this little piece. But TV absolutely does not have to equal UW. So make sure that you are very clear about your wording. Okay, let's label what they're giving us. So we're dealing with UW. So let me get rid of these so that they're not in the way and I can still label. I know that these two pieces have to be equal in order to show that I have a parallelogram. So UW, this entire piece, okay, this entire piece right here, that is 22. Okay, AW, which is just this piece, AW is 2x minus 1. Okay, so what do I know? Let's think about this. I know that the diagonals get bisected. If the entire diagonal is 22, then that means that each piece, it means that UA is 11 and AW is 11. Okay, this is key information because look what I have. I have an algebraic expression for AW. Once I make that connection that they're both going to be, both UA and AW will be 11, because that is 22 divided in half, I now can set this up. I can say AW equals 2x minus 1. Okay, I can replace AW with the value 11, and that's going to equal 2x minus 1, add 1, add 1. That gives me 12 equals 2x. Divide by 2, divide by 2, and I get x equals 6. Now, many of you are going to look at these two expressions, and you're going to set them equal. And that is completely incorrect. So make sure you really think about what you're doing. Do not just set terms equal. Illustrate your diagram. Number one thing in geometry, illustrate, 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 and then think things through. So let's check our work. If I put in 6 for x, do I get 11? And the answer is yes. 12 minus 1 equals 11. Okay, good. Okay, so we're winding down here. Got a few more problems, and then we're going to do some written responses. Okay, next one. Have the same approach. These are diagonals. Diagonals are bisected, cut into equal parts. They are not equal. Okay, what have I been given? LQ. From here to here, that value is 17. Then they gave me SQ. SQ is 4 plus 6x. Okay, SQ is the whole thing. If LQ is 17, then that means what? That SL is also 17 because they're bisected. So what I can do is add those two together. 17 plus 17 is 34. So that whole piece is 34, and that whole piece is algebraically given to me as 4 plus 6x. Subtract 4, subtract 4, 30 equals 6x. Divide by 6, divide by 6. X is going to equal 5. Okay, if I put in 5 to check, 4 plus 6 times 5 gives me 34, which is indeed 17 plus 17. So I know my answer is correct. Again, label, 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 and think. Okay, next one. KC is 16. KC is right here. That's 16. CM, which is the other half, look at that. CM is 5x plus 1. In this situation, they're different halves of the same diagonal, and in a parallelogram, since your diagonals are bisected, you can set that equal. Minus 1, minus 1, 15 equals 5x. Divide by 5, divide by 5. X will equal 3. Okay, plug in, so I'm going to check. I need to make sure that the red half is also 16. 5 times 3 plus 1 equals 16, and I know that I have bisected diagonals, and that's consistent with having a parallelogram. Okay, now let's move on to this. We've got a couple more problems here, and then we have some word items. Okay, for each image below, determine if it is a parallelogram. Okay, so it looks like I have a couple of options here. How many degrees are inside a quadrilateral? So from 8.1, I know that I have 360 degrees inside a parallelogram or a quadrilateral because n minus 2 times 180, and that's going to be 4 minus 2, which is 2 times 180. That's going to be 360. Okay, so let's find the missing angle. So 360 has to equal 105.
Here's what I found.
Oops, sorry about that. Plus 105 plus 75 plus a question mark. So if I add those all together, what will I get? So let's see. It looks to me like that's 210, 210 plus 75 plus question mark. That's 285 plus question mark. 360 minus 285. I now know that that missing angle, this angle, is 75. So I can say, yes, this is I'm going to just draw this parallelogram. Okay, I'm just abbreviating for space. Since opposite angles are congruent, okay, you have to say why. What about this next one? What am I seeing? This is inside. Those are the pieces of the diagonal. These are the pieces of the diagonal. Yes. It is a parallelogram. Since diagonals are bisected. So you have to know what makes up a parallelogram. Okay, next one. Next one you can say yes also. And it's because this is a parallelogram because one pair of sides is both, and it has to be both, parallel and congruent. That's what makes that a parallelogram. Okay, look at this. Now they're telling you these two shapes are parallelograms, so what can you do? This is a parallelogram provided that that diagonal has been bisected, and if it is, these two are going to be equal. Bring your x's to one side. That should give you a 2x when you subtract x from both sides. Add 11 to both sides. That gives you a 16. Divide by 2. Divide by 2. X is going to equal 8, and we are done. And you can check. 3 times 8 minus 11. Does that equal 8 plus 5? Well, 8 plus 5 is 13. That's 24 minus 11. That's 13, and it checks. Okay, these will be parallelograms if my consecutive angles sum to 180. So 101 plus x has to be 180. So subtract 101, subtract 101, and we get x equals 79. And if it's a parallelogram, that's exactly what x is going to equal because of consecutive angles summing to 180. Okay, next one. Consecutive angles again. Here's this angle and here's this angle. These have to sum to 180 if I have a parallelogram. So let's sum them. Force it to equal 180. Add your x's, you get 6x. Add your numbers, you get a minus 6. Equals 180, add 6, 6x equals 186, divide by 6, and x equals 31, and you could plug in, and they should both equal what? They should equal different things that sum to 180, so it looks like this first angle is going to be 32 degrees. What's this other one going to be? It's going to be 5 times 31. 5 times 31. That's 155. Minus 7 gives me 148. That's going to equal 180, and I'm good. Last one. Okay, they already tell you that these guys are equal. So this is the value here, and that is the value there. In order for that to be a parallelogram, the other diagonals, the other pair, or the other diagonal has to also be bisected. Okay, so bring your x's over, minus x, that gives me x, plus 1, that gives me 6. So if I plug in 6, I should get equal pieces. This is going to be 6 times 2 is 12, minus 1 is 11, and 6 plus 5 is 11, so that checks. So x equals 6 is the correct answer. Okay, so check your work. Make sure you understand how you're getting these. Okay, write the definition of a parallelogram. Okay, so a parallelogram is a quadrilateral or four-sided shape, quadrilateral, with opposite sides parallel. So remember, for the definition is going to have the word parallel as a root of the word parallelogram. Okay, that's how you're going to remember that that's the definition. Okay, write out and draw 4 different theorems that can be used to prove you have a parallelogram. Okay, in no particular order. 1, this is how I would draw it out. Draw your parallelogram. I'm going to set these guys equal. So I'm going to say opposite sides are congruent. That's one reason I have a parallelogram. Okay, then I'm going to deal with angles. So if I have a parallelogram, and I'm going to make this, let's see, I'm going to make this x, y, x, y. So I'm going to say x plus y will equal 180. And this deals with consecutive angles being supplementary. So consecutive angles are supplementary. Remember, they sum to 180. And what's the other piece of angles? X equals x and y equals y. Clearly that's true. And how come? Because opposite angles are congruent. Okay, that's a second theorem. Okay, we've done a lot of things with diagonals. So let's go ahead and we will draw a parallelogram. Okay, I'm doing a better job with the shape here. Okay, so draw a diagonal. Draw the other diagonal. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to indicate that these pieces have been bisected and that these pieces have been bisected. And I'm going to say diagonals are bisected by each other in a parallelogram. Okay, you may want to make flashcards of this because you should be able to draw and write. Okay, the last one deals with one pair or one side, or, two sides, two opposite sides, are both congruent and parallel. So I'm going to say one pair of sides or both, and that's the key. They have to be both parallel and congruent. Okay? This, I'm just going to say, does not work if you have this scenario. Okay, you can't have this, but you have one pair parallel and one pair congruent. Okay, so remember, this does not work. So I'm going to say note, that does not work. Okay, and that concludes the review. So you have, a lot of work to go over, but we have done a lot of this in class. And if you missed the review, and there's 2 of you that missed the review, here it is, just like we did in class. Actually, we did more right now than I did in class. And if you need additional help, come see me before the quiz, because my expectation is that since you didn't miss any new material, that you should be able to take the quiz with the class. Okay, so thank you for listening. I hope you found this helpful, and see you in class for the quiz, and I wish you every success in the world.